Hello, welcome to Nerds in the Burgh, episode 2. I am Desmond.
And I'm Xavier.
And this is our episode on Warhammer 40,000.
Episode 2, in fact.
So, Warhammer 40,000.
It's a hobby of ours.
It's a fairly large hobby of ours. I think a lot of our time, money even, gets devoted into this hobby.
Yeah, emphasis on the money.
Yeah. So, if you
probably heard of this game, 40K. Since 2020, it's kind of exploded in popularity. Post-COVID.
I agree.
One of those things, kind of like D&D, where it is a post-COVID, like, just breakout hobby to do now. Though I think D&D that revival may have started because of Stranger Things, but I do think that a lot of tabletop games, 40K hadn't seen a huge explosion since 2020 with new additions and multimedia, and we're hoping to talk a bit about 40K in very broad strokes and some of our personal experience with the hobby.
Yeah, this is, we won't get into super baby detail. I think we just want to give a big summary about, what Warhammer 40,000 or 40K as it's commonly abbreviated to is, our own experiences in the hobby, the things that we like about it, and maybe like where we see it going in the near future.
We'll talk about what we play.
As we said, this is our first episode on Warhammer 40,000. We're likely going to do more just because it is such a big
huge
part of our,
top.
Hobby-wise, I think this is probably my favorite hobby, Warhammer 40,000, whether it's the painting or the playing or the reading. But a introduction into what Warhammer 40,000 actually is, if you're not familiar. So it is primarily a tabletop war game that is played by 2 or more people, set in the far future of the 41st millennium, set in our Milky Way galaxy. It started in the late 1980s as a science fiction expansion of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, which was a pretty popular tabletop game.
Which I'd say was for a while the Warhammer game to play.
That's the thing, and older fans in this community would 100% agree with that. Warhammer Fantasy was the face of tabletop wargaming and Warhammer specifically for a very long time. Unfortunately, and I think we'll probably do an episode on Warhammer Fantasy or its sequel, Age of Sigmar, in the future.
Which is my favorite part of 40K. Is the Fantasy and Sigmar, which we don't have time to talk about today, is my favorite part. But I do enjoy 40K as well.
We'll probably do an episode on those settings in the future. But for now, Warhammer 40,000, just a transplant of the fantasy tropes into what the future of our galaxy might look like. So you had, of course, your
human kingdom,
your human like religious fanatic kingdom. You have your orcs, but instead of like spear and club, they instead have
machine guns,
and
axe, trucks.
There's space dwarves. There's space elves. I mean, there's
space dark elves.
Space dark elves. Yeah, they follow the big like light elf, dark elf
split,
wood elf split.
Yeah.
Even in the 41st.
Oh yeah, I stay with that though. Their own what else?
And kind of the way that the setting is set up, if you are getting into it, is there's 3 not like main players because there's a lot of different like factions involved.
Like three super factions.
Yes, like 3 lanes of stories they tell. There is the Imperium, which is the main human faction in Warhammer 40,000.
The poster boys. They're the beta armored guy you see, that is the Imperium. They are part of the Imperium.
Yeah.
Space Marines, they have Guard.
Space Marine Guard, Knights, Imperial Guardsmen. They are not the good guys. Here's one big thing about getting into it with 40,000. Most fans would agree that there's no such thing as a good faction in the game.
But there are good people. Like, there's good people,
yes.
But every faction is some shade of evil or malevolent for sure.
It's one of the sad things about the 41st Millennium setting.
Like, I mean, it's kind of a setting that's like spiraling into an eventual apocalypse.
Yeah, it is 100%. The story of the 41st Millennium is a story of everything just gets worse and worse and worse, and there's not a lot of hope in the universe. It's one of the settings that popularized the term of grimdark.
Which is just like hopeless.
It's not only that the setting itself has dark elements, but that there is very little hope in the setting. I think the opposite of that is like is noble bright fantasy. which isn't just fantasy, it can be sci-fi too. But Noble Bright is your heroes going out on quests to save the world, where in Grimdark, that's not really a thing. Your heroes are not going to make a big difference in the world because the world is much, much greater than they are. So Imperium are the kind of the poster boys, as you'd said. They're the human faction, but not necessarily the good guys. After them are the definitely not good guys, the Forces of Chaos. That name does not give you an idea of what they're like.
Doesn't matter what anyone says. There's nothing redeemable about Chaos. There's some Chaos fans try to say they're the true guys. Don't listen to them.
No.
Everyone's bad. Chaos is just governed by 4 main gods. You have Khorne, who is your classic like devil. He's the god of wrath and war, bloodshed. You have Nurgle, which is the grandfather of decay. He's about disease, pestilence, and all his followers have like a cool like zombie or like bloated corpse or like a fly motif. You have my favorite chaos god, Tzeentch, the Changer of Ways. He's very eldritch. Sorcerers, forbidden knowledge. Kind of has a Cthulhu vibe with like the eyes and tentacles, and like some of his demons kind of have a fish or an aquatic.
Or bird look.
Oh yeah, or bird, which a lot of birds too. And then there is the newest, quote unquote newest of the Chaos Gods. Not as the game released, but in the lore, it is Slaanesh, who is the Prince of Pleasure, which is about excess, perfection. Definitely pleasure and excess is something they lean to in the army. I wish they do the perfection and the obsession with beauty a little more, but Sylvie, that's I don't want into that whole thing right now. And then there's just Undivided, which is followers that may take aspects from all the 4, but they follow 04 as one. They don't really choose a favorite, and that's called Chaos Undivided. So
yeah. And if it wasn't implied by the description of like the leaders of Chaos, they are the very like demony, like dark religion themed faction setting. What they are is that there is this multiversal threat called Chaos that seeks to corrupt and devour worlds, and they feed on emotions and acts that mortals commit. So they're trying to perpetuate their worship across all realities, and unfortunately the 41st millennium is one of those realities.
And all 4 of these guys are actually the same entities that you see in Old World and in Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. The fun thing with Warhammer is that there's it's like a loose multiverse. All the settings like Warhammer Fantasy, Old World, Age of Sigmar, 40k. If you don't know about Warhammer, that's just a lot of just goop words I threw at you. But they're all the different stories that the Warhammer universe has used. All different worlds and settings. Chaos is the uniting factor. So if you're talking about the evil bird frogman Tzeentch, who is empowering wizards to do battle against like heroic space marines, that is the same Tzeentch that is also sending his demon goons out to fight against like knights and griffins and Pegasi and all that in other universes. The powers of chaos truly want to just take and devour everything that exists, and so they're they're sort of the
they're kind of the main. I'd say those are the main antagonists for sure.
Oh yeah, they are the main antagonists of all of Warhammer. I would agree as well. Even in some of the more minor Warhammer settings like Dark Future, which I think even if you know what Warhammer is, there's a very slim chance you know what that is because Games Workshop hasn't addressed it in like 20 years. It's a very Mad Max world. Chaos even shows up there in the Mad Max like Road Apocalypse universe.
It's a cool setting. Maybe we'll talk about it more. The myriad of Warhammer stuff.
And beyond the Imperium and Chaos
are the underdogs.
The underdogs.
The forgotten the middle child, the redhead stepchild of factions. Yes.
The Xenos. Xenos is a term in the Warhammer 40,000 universe for aliens. It's the aliens who are humanity's peers in the galaxy.
In theory.
Unfortunately, most of mankind in Warhammer is backwards and xenophobic and bigoted, and they do not treat other species well.
A lot of Xenos have been wiped out, so kind of what we see on the table. It was interesting. What you see on the tabletop is not fully inaccurate, but they do represent kind of the the remaining Xenos that are still left.
The people who are still left in the galaxy
that can make some sort of like
millions of years of war.
Right.
Yeah.
That can make some sort of like dent in the galaxy or change the galaxy.
And those are, as we said before, it's the orcs who are these bioweapons. They exist only for war. They love fighting.
Yeah, in fact, the more they fight, the better they get, and that's how their whole culture is.
Yeah. They're kind of set up, and maybe we'll go into this a bit later. And the reason why I want to talk about Warhammer 40,000 is because it's getting its
11th edition.
As of the today that we're recording it, it comes out tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So orcs are kind of the bad guys. Again, there's not really no good guy, bad guys, but they're being set up as the bad guys of this new edition of the game. So all the early lore and story releases that come out are going to be about like them fighting mankind. Beyond them, there's their sibling race, the Eldari or the Eldar, which are your space elves.
They're very psychic. They're very like gracile.
Yeah.
Kind of the polar opposite of the orc, but the orc's more crude. The elf is definitely more of a...
If orcs were genetically engineered for only war, the Eldari were genetically engineered to survive the galaxy. They're long-lived. A lot of them are psychics. Powerful warriors. Yeah. They're psychic. They're very well...
I think they also say like...
universe.
I think they also said like they're very emotional, so like how we feel happy, they feel happy way more, basically our emotions, but like tenfold. They're very emotional creatures.
That's sort of their undoing, is that they that the Eldar are so emotional. They perceive things so much more vividly than humans do. And if you remember what we said about chaos, they feed on emotions and acts, so they are very commonly the prey of chaos, as they are easily not quite corruptible, because even though Eldar can be corrupted, most times when they fall to chaos, they're just instantly killed. Their souls are just absorbed by chaos. So yeah, there's like the Eldar. They're like the super advanced faction of the game. Unfortunately, they're like a dying empire. They're portrayed as. It's like the kind of like Lord of the Rings trope with elves. They're
on their way out of the galaxy.
Yeah,
they're not their zenith. They're at their rubble of their civilization.
And a race that's quite the opposite, that are kind of rising in the galaxy, are the Tau. Who are...
Which a lot of people hate. I don't hate them, but...
Yeah, it's a shame that they get as much hate as they do. The Tau are not a single species, even though Tau is the name of like the main species.
Well, those are the blue fish guys with hooves. They're kind of like the gray alien face.
Yeah, they're like space samurai ninja.
Yeah, they're very. They definitely have like a Japanese aesthetic, which they have Gundams, so they
literally have Gundams.
So I know they're definitely based. They're aesthetically definitely based on one of the Japanese dynasties.
Beyond them, there are the Kroot, which are sort of a lizard bird people. They have like a hyper adaptation, so that when they consume things, they're
kind of like skirmishers.
Evolve. They're like skirmishers from Halo.
Raiders. Yeah.
Oh, skirmishers as like pirates. They are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They also do like the jackals from Halo. Yeah.
Which if you're like, hey, that sounds the coalition of aliens. That kind of sounds like the Covenant.
They kind of are like a non-religious.
They came out at the same time too. So you gotta imagine Sony Games Workshop was really pissed that like Halo had gotten like released, and was like, what the hell? Like,
that was our thing.
Yeah, and then there's some other smaller factions. I think the other. We won't go too much into them this time, but there's also the Vespids.
Which are like bee people.
They're bee people. They're kind of like the aerial warriors of the Tau.
There's a whole. There's so many like little like fringe races of the Tau that don't get a little love on tabletop, but there is more than the main three. Oh, humans are also a big part of it.
Oh yeah, humans don't just belong to the Imperium. Humans also belong to the forces of chaos, and they also belong to the Tau Empire. There's humans who kind of realize that their government sucks, and that they would like to move over to. They'd like to move over to.
The Tau are bad, but they are definitely more tolerable. I think they have a more modern, quote unquote modern way of thinking.
Yeah.
Compared to the Imperium. The Imperium is very like theocratic, fascist, medieval. Basically, the Imperium's a soup of a lot of some of the greatest infamous hits of humanity, while the Tau is like I guess their evil is more like in the background.
They're very
like they're very authoritarian.
But it's like, hey, everyone has a place in our empire, and we're fighting for like a bright future for the galaxy. However, if you don't follow us, we will send you a re-education camp and/or execute you. And it's like, okay.
Oh yeah, they'll nuke a planet if the whole planet doesn't comply. Like they're not beyond stuff like that. They just tend to see the benefit of like diplomacy and like trade and all that stuff that the Imperium, for the most part, forgets to do in its Imperial conquest.
The other Xenos factions that we have remaining, they call them the Votan, the Leagues of Votan.
Which are your space dwarves.
They're your space dwarves. They're similar to the Tau in that they aren't necessarily they aren't laughably evil like a lot of factions in 40k are.
Yeah, they're evils through I'd say corporatism and
they're very capitalistic and
they're very callous. They're not very emotional. They're very
if you live on a
logical.
If you live on a moon that has a resource they want,
they will just take it. Yeah,
they will take it.
I think they'll ask you to leave, but if you don't, they will mine your planet, core and all. And if you're still there, then that's kind of on you. There's the
they're also the newest main.
They came out at the end of 9th, which was
technically they've existed since 40k began, but they haven't had support on the tabletop for years.
Were they known as the Squats? Are Squats in the same thing? Squats are like the old name for the dwarves. They're kind of the same
thing. The lore they gave is that a Squat is a dwarf that lives in the Imperium, and a Kin is a dwarf that lives in the Leagues of Votan.
They're pretty cool. I almost did them for my 11th army, but I did something else, which we'll explain.
They're cool. I think I'll collect them at some point as just like
I might definitely collect. Pieces, there's some models I just think I'll collect and paint because I think they look cool. The guy who was swallowed by
he was swallowed by a
Tyranid, which is a good segue. It was a good segue to the Tyranids.
The next two Xenos factions are the Tyranids and the Gene Stealer cults, and what those are, the Tyranids are a species from another galaxy who just like to eat. They'll eat everything they get their hands on. They're kind of like bug, reptile, mammal creatures.
They definitely have like a xenomorph vibe of like bioweapon-y.
Yeah. And the really cool thing about them is that they are not technically they are a species, but they're also technically a single organism. Every single Tyranid is described as like
a splinter.
The hand. Yeah, it's like the hand of a larger entity. Which is like the hive mind, or it's also called like the Great Dragon. And what this is it's like the combined like soul/mind of their species that directs them across galaxies to eat everything
to consume and create. Yeah.
And there are Tyranids hidden amongst the other factions in the galaxy. These are the Gene Stealer cults.
And they're not here to steal your Levi's.
They're not stealing your Levi's. They're stealing your genes.
Like your DNA genes.
Yeah, the Tyranids will send sort of probing organisms to like farther ahead of their fleets to infect.
Yeah, these stealthy like
and it will mutate people on that planet into the Gene Stealer cultists who have a sort of a like mental submission towards Tyranids.
They worship the Four-Armed Emperor. What's what they call the Great Dragon.
Yeah, they worship Tyranids as angels and gods. They don't. Most don't seem to know that they're actually aliens. Some of them do know they're aliens, but don't care either. But the Tyranids are effectively humans, Eldar, Orcs, Tau, who have been infected by the Tyranids and who will prepare a planet for the Tyranids' like feast when they arrive.
Yeah, they do sabotage across the planet. They invoke political instability. They'll like blow up a spaceport or like sabotage a gun array.
They basically just
exist. They basically soften the planet for the main force, so the main force has an easier time getting there and eating everything. That includes and that does include the Gene Stealers.
That includes the Gene Stealers.
For the most part, which is tragic but very grimdark.
And then the final of the main Xenos factions of the game are the Necrons. They are your kind of fantasy-style undead mummies.
Yeah, like your mummy skeleton type.
But they aren't like rotting corpses. They are robots. They are in a very ancient species in the galaxy who found a way to transfer themselves into metal bodies to stave off their species' destruction, and they have returned from this deep slumber in order to conquer the
galaxy, which they rightfully see as
their
theirs.
Old territory. Yeah. I think that kind of goes into all the
major
like playable factions in the game.
Again, we're broad stroked in this because if we sat down and told you everything, that itself would be a whole episode. We do encourage you to, if any sound cool, to like look them up because
we did just spend about 7 minutes explaining all these factions, but we promise you that is the actual tip of the universe. There's so much more getting into it.
It is such an iceberg of a franchise.
It's a multimedia franchise as well. This isn't just a tabletop game. There are video games. 2 years ago, I think it was, Space Marine 2 came out, which was oh my gosh, it exploded. Rogue Trader did, which is a kind of a tabletop RPG, but built for a video game console.
It's kind of like Baldur's Gate, but it's not multiplayer. It's a single player game.
There's books. This is actually someone we know here in Plattsburgh did a count of how many Warhammer 40K books there are. I think if it wasn't approaching 1,000 of them, it was.
It's in the upper hundreds for sure.
Yeah, there's books, there's audiobooks, short stories, novellas.
Also, their books are not just like, oh, it's a sci-fi. I mean, it's a sci-fi genre, like a setting, but they do branch off to horror. They do branch into detective. They branch off to like spy thriller and conspiracy. There's a lot of like subgenre books within the 40K universe that if you like any of those particular ones, definitely give them out. Things are cool world, and I think they have some talented writers that the kind of the corners of the galaxy that we don't really see in the tabletop.
And there's videos and shows as well. They usually do
they have like Warhammer Plus. They have some stuff.
Yeah, it's a streaming service for Warhammer. There is, I think, Astartes is like the big show, which
started on YouTube.
I believe
started on YouTube.
It started on YouTube. It's a fun. It was actually just a fan. It was a fanon thing.
Yeah, like, made by one guy.
One guy.
I've read the gentleman's name, but he's now employed by James Workshop to create more of these Astartes.
Yeah, the company
shows.
that owns Warhammer 40,000 saw how popular this one dude, like this one animator's home project was, and they hired him to help make their shows when they opened their streaming platform. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And they have a starfighter show. Well, they have like an aircraft show.
Yeah, that's
coming or has come out.
Yeah, like a dogfight.
Yeah, very like
dogfight show.
Yeah, very like World War II dogfighty vibes with like fighting elves.
And beyond even their own streaming platform, there is a Warhammer 40,000 television show that's coming to Amazon Prime in the near future. It's being created by Henry Cavill, like the Superman Witcher actor. He is a
king of the nerds.
Henry Cavill. I mean, he's a pretty hot.
He's a hot dude.
He somehow finds time to paint Warhammer
which is
models and play
crazy.
Them, which is very funny to know how big of a he is. So, but he's enlisted in this project.
I think he's a producer / actor. But again, it show hasn't come out yet. I think it's in. I heard rumblings of 2026. Though I haven't, there's no trailer, so don't get any hopes up until you see a trailer. That's always my rule with projects like that. But yeah, it's super cool. I'm excited. What are you hoping the show is about? Like realistically, it's probably Space Marines, but
yeah, realistically, it's probably gonna be Space Marines.
It would be cool if it's like I would love to see very like a Game of Thronesy like political intrigue that has good action as well, which I just Game of Thrones does have too. About like the different Space Marine chapters and the Primarchs leading to the Horus Heresy, which is like
that's a whole
other thing. Basically, a huge civil war within the Imperium of Man, and I think that'd be interesting to see. I don't think that would be it, because they have so many books and the Horus Heresy. They even have their next series is about the end.
Oh my God.
The end of the Horus Heresy.
It was so funny. All right, most older 40K fans did not understand the need to devote over 100 book series to an event that in the lore was just there to justify why there's
like spiky Space Marines and bad guys
Space Marines. Like there was no reason to expand that lore. It was hilarious.
They kind of Star Wars their lore right there.
On Warhammer Community, the blog site that they run, seeing the Heresy books are over. The final Siege of Terra novel is out now. The next freaking week, they said,
"Hey guys,
the next series is the follow up to the Horus Heresy novels." It's like, are you kidding? It's like, yes, literally the Horus Heresy is over with. This is a new book series, but it's still a literal follow up.
It's a sequel. It's a sequel to the Horus Heresy. Yes,
which is still a prequel to the main 40K story. Oh man, did not make people that we know happy to see. It's a very divisive topic.
When it comes to the Horus Heresy books, I think the advice I heard is like, don't read the whole thing. Choose books that like sound cool, which I think is a theme of like, kind of Warhammer.
There's a funny like Twitter post and reply I saw at one point where someone had all the books in
stacked,
Horus Heresy series stacked, and was like, just finished the series. And the reply to
was
that
good?
Was it good? And he's like, no.
No.
No. How did you get into 40K, Xavier?
So in college, my buddy Armand, shout out to Armand's Cakes. If you're ever in White Plains or the New York City area, check out Armand's Cakes. They're delicious. Anyways, we're rooming together. I think I asked him a question like, hey, if you didn't have like an army to control, this is the type of conversations I'm having as a freshman in college. So, I didn't invite a lot of parties freshman year. What army would you have as like you can control? I said, I think like something in the Star Wars galaxy. I think it said droids from Star Wars. I was a huge fan of the battle droids from Star Wars. And then he told me about like how you do Space Marines, and I didn't know what that was. So we basically spent a whole evening him talking about broad strokes of the lore of like, oh, there's like space marines and evil space marines, and there's zombie ones, and there's like samurai ones, and like there's also demons, and basically that was a whole rabbit hole. And then during COVID, inspired by kind of going through it, the Warhammer lore on my own, about 1,000 Suns, which are the sorcerer evil marines. They worship Tzeentch. I bought a box of the Rubik Warriors, but it's like they're just standard troops, and the claws were in. My addiction to plastic began, and I'm looking at the hordes of plastic we have on our shelves. Most of it unpainted. I'm terrible when it comes to getting my models painted. I have fallen into the habit of buy a cool thing without finishing. But yeah, that's how I got on the Warhammer, was through a guy who likes the lore, but wisely does not spend thousands of dollars on armies. He just kind of buys and paints stuff he finds cool as like an art project, which is like pretty cool. I think that's a fair. If you just like the look of characters and models and want to paint them, hey, you're saving money and it's a cool hobby. So more power to you. Oh yeah, what was your introduction to the 40,000th millennium?
It was 2019, so I think just pretty shortly before you would have gone into it. Then
Yeah.
I think it was a sophomore in. 2019. I would have been a sophomore in college. I was I went to Platts Nerd, which was a very geeky festival that was run here like every year in Plattsburgh. They don't really have it anymore. They have the card comics collectible like festival. That's all they've got.
That's kind of its spiritual successor.
Yeah, the spiritual successor.
But they don't even call it Platts Nerd, so like honestly, what's the point?
Guys, it's literally called Platts Nerd. Like, the name is there. Anyhow, I was at Platts Nerd, and there was a booth set up by Medusa Gaming here in Plattsburgh, down on Margaret Street.
Great place.
It is a fun place. Very fun place. Spent a lot of time there. So, their booth is set up, and they had a bunch of these plastic models that were all painted up in like cool colors. A big blue army, and there was a big green, like gross looking zombie army. And I was like, "What is this?" The
vendor,
gentleman, the guy there, was like, "Oh, this is like Warhammer 40,000. Have you heard of it?" And I was like, "No, I've not." And he's like, "Oh no, it's a fun game. There's books. There's a few old games. What you do is you crack open a box, you build the models, you paint them, and then you put them on a board and you play." And I was like, "So like what are these guys?" And he's like, these guys, and he was finding the blue guys. Like, these are the Ultramarines, they're Space Marines, they're these super soldier warriors who protect humanity from aliens and demons and all that sort of stuff. And the guys here are the Death Guard, and they are corrupt, evil Space Marines who have fallen to one of these gods. And they're now basically indestructible, but they are bloated with like disease and sickness. And I left, and I was like, I have got to get into that series. So I think I literally went home from the mall where Platts Nerd was being held. I started looking up the lore, and then I went on eBay and I bought a box of Space Marines. It was Chaos Space Marines to paint up. And they arrived, and I painted them all. I think I painted every single one a different color. From there, I was lost to it. I think if I remember right, that Christmas, when I returned home from college, my mom was like, "What can we get you?" And I was like, I got into this really cool hobby.
Warhammer.
It's called Warhammer. So then I got into that. And that was, I think, that would be the very, very tail end of 8th edition. Then I started expanding to like the books and all that. I started with Chaos Space Marines. I wouldn't say that they're my favorite army. That probably goes to the Blood Angels Space Marines. They are the like quote good guy ones. They're like the defenders of humanity. Their big thing is that they're so bad. Their big thing is they are, if I just sum up Blood Angel Space Marines, they are Catholic vampires who go to art school. They're very big on like the noble warrior, but they're
like pretty men.
They're like
pretty boys.
They're like genetically pretty boys. Beyond them, I play, or at least I am starting to play Eldar, which are the elf faction in the game. I'm really enjoying working on them. I think this is like the first time I've tried an army with like a bright colored paint, because generally dark colored armies are a lot easier to paint. I think it's based on like the pigment in the paint that you get. But I'm painting like a bright orange army right now. I'm having fun, but it's a little hard. And like Eldar are cool. I mean, they're not just like, oh, like elves with bows and stuff.
They have like lasers.
They have like lasers. They have like shuriken, like guns that fire shurikens. There's like their big ghost mech suits that they have, and
They have tanks.
Tanks. They have
Hover
pirates.
tanks.
They have a bunch of elf pirates.
The Corsairs. They're so
Yeah.
cool. They just came out with a expansion.
Yeah,
a couple
they
months
used
ago.
to have models a while ago that were out of production, and then late last year / early this year they released a bunch of new Eldari
great.
Corsairs. They're beautiful models. I
Yeah.
picked up the box for myself. What about you?
My favorite factions are Thousand Sons is probably number one, and they're like, as I said earlier, they're kind of like they're all sorcerers, they're all wizards. They practice arcane magic, and their whole thing is collecting forbidden magic and knowledge that they use to empower themselves. They fell to chaos by Zinch, which I think I said earlier. And they have like a kind of Egyptian, Middle Eastern, ancient Babylon kind of aesthetic with like the pharaoh frills and the kopeshes. Cool thing about them is the most of their soldiers, like their rank and file, are basically living pieces of armor that are powered by like the essence or like the quote unquote dust of their fallen brothers. And I think that's to the Rubertide curse. So only like the exalted sorcerers, the ones on these discs that really test spells, are the sentient. They're still have their bodies and their souls. They're just kind of mutated. They have extra eyes. They can have extra mouths. They have tentacles. They can have a bird head. I really just like Eldritch and arcane things. I'm a big fan of Call of Cthulhu and like Lovecraftian and stuff. So once I saw them, I was like, I'm getting them, which is my mistake because they're probably one of the most annoying things to paint. I think I have one complete model. It doesn't look that good in my painted model. It looks that good, but like I just really love their lore. I love the characters that go with them. I just love Thousand Sons. I also do like your regular like rank and file Chaos Space Marine. Especially the Red Corsairs. My CSM army is inspired by them, and they're like kind of the pirate Space Marines. They kind of don't follow chaos as a religion. They use it as a source for power to get riches, and they're really cool. They're oddly egalitarian. They have like humans, obviously, like regular humans, not just Space Marines, but aliens in their crew. So that's what I play. I play 1,000 Suns. I play CSM. But for 11th theme, my new army that I'm going to try and build is Drukhari, which are kind of funny. It's the invert, literally the nemesis of your Eldaris. They're the Dark Elves. They're the ones that fell to the Dark Gods, Slanesh, because they were so bored with like having everything. They tried to experiment with like new sensations and new like feelings. So like colors that would make one go insane, or like, like sensation on the body that were borderline just like gore porn and like torture.
They're very effed up.
They're very debaucherous. So to stave off their souls, just now all their souls belong to the Prince of Pleasure. They fend them off by doing these like terrible acts of debauchery to keep the monster kind of in the closet and away from them. They got like a pirate. They're pretty cool. They kind of range from a piratey vibe to like a Yakuza vibe to like your traditional like space marauder slavers. They unfortunately do a lot of terrible things with slaves.
The funny thing though is that as part of this whole like there's no good guys,
they're definitely not. They're like really evil.
Nearly. No,
but they're very egalitarian.
I think every faction in Warhammer commits like slavery.
Yeah.
I think every single one of them, no matter how good they are, they just have like Space Marines or like heroic warriors. Like, oh, we have a thing called a serf, and it's like that's a slave. I know what a fucking thesaurus.
Well, they also have what are they called? Servers, which are basically like lobotomized like humans that are meant to serve. Like, there's no technology in the Imperium because AI is like heretical and evil to them. So you see vending machine? That's not a vending machine. That's literally a guy that they've gutted up and programmed to like be a living vending machine because they can't have
computer.
They can't have a computer like do stuff. So any like medical machine, any like typewriter, any like anything you think is like, oh, that's a TV or like a computer. No, that's probably powered by a person.
Yeah, there's like I think especially like people who have played the recent games that have come out haven't been exposed to like how fucked up the Imperium is.
I mean, they're
I cannot
kind of all the worst
cannot
things about
count
human
how many
civilization.
times I've played a Warhammer game where I walk into an elevator and there's just like a person's head mounted on the wall, and it's like, what floor? It's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, someone built that.
That's a guy.
That's a guy.
That's a guy whose crime should have been like bad, but also very like he forgot to like put his purity seals on.
Yeah.
And the Inquisition turned him to an elevator.
I like the Thousand Sons as well. Like you said though, I didn't get into them because they
Just
look like they are terrible.
I think the key for Thousand Sons, which I'm gonna do with the big they're heavy units, is I'm gonna paint them like living statues, so I don't have to deal with the trim. They're gonna be like a jade like statues, so I can with like different colored eyes, and maybe like I'll give their weapons a different coat of paint. But I think for them, I'm really trying to find shortcuts, which sounds bad, but like if you look at their models, maybe I won't want one in the thumbnail or something, but they're just like so much accent, so much trim, so much like little details. Like how am I supposed to? How's my brush supposed to get in there and paint that? Like it's crazy, but I love them. They're my favorite. But yeah, books.
Well, I it sucks because we mentioned how bad the Horus Heresy books are. I like the Horus Heresy books. I like seeing what the Imperium was. Not like, well, I guess it would have been not at humanity's golden age, because humanity's golden age is long gone.
But the
Imperium's golden
which
age,
is, I think, it's a difference.
Where humanity is still at a pretty low point, but is not at the lowest point it will be. It's fun to see. I do like Space Marines, so I do like the politics that go on in the books and the battles, because the Horus Heresy is the war that will define what the 41st millennium looks like in the future. Yeah. It has the Imperium schisming, and it goes between the ones who choose to follow the God Emperor of mankind, this religious figure, and then those who fall to the gods of chaos because they don't see the Emperor and his authority as something that's worth following. So I like the Horus Heresy books. In general, genuinely, you can just pick up a Horus Heresy book, read. It's really cool. They do that thing that a lot of drama like theater books have, where it'll say like the dramatis persona, like the characters who are going to be in the play. They have that at the front of the book. So if you are getting to the hobby and you're like, oh, I really like I like the Space Wolves, you can open up a Horus Heresy book. You can go to like the third or fourth page. Within the first couple pages, it'll say like what factions are in the book and then what characters in the book. So if you see that your faction that you like is there, hey, pick up the book. What about you?
One of my favorite Warhammer books is I like Day of Ascension, which is about Gene Stealers. It's about like humans on a planet trying to like uncovering a Gene Stealer uprising. I won't spoil some of the things of like the story wise. If you like the Imperium, like the Gene Stealers, just read it. It's a really good book. And then I'm currently reading Armon the Eternal, which is the named like second in command of the Thousand Sons, and it's about him trying to find ways to stave off the Rubbertide curse. And I'm just I started it not too far back, and I'm enjoying it. But my favorite book is The Infinite Divine, which follows two Necron characters that kind of have like an adventure throughout the galaxy. They both hate each other. Trace the Infinite and
Orkin the Divine.
And they're kind of like, they're going through different like factions, different events. There's a really funny scene about essentially immortal robots. Like time doesn't really matter to them. So there's a funny scene where Trazen goes to a play that he's seen many times, but he's kind of a nerd. So he's like, oh, you gotta see this play. And they don't see his play. And then something's different in the play. He's like, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. They changed the script. And it turns out the play was a cover for a Gene Stealer uprising, and then they had to get off the planet because the Gene Stealers used the play as a cover to take over the planet, and to much Trazen's chagrin. Very fun book. It's not really like a lore book. I don't think anything status quo wise is mentioned or is changed. It's kind of a fun book with two like immortal robots who've kind of seen like the ebbs and flows of the galaxy through millions of years, and I think it's a very fun like character book. So.
I agree. Infinite and Divine, Day of Ascension are really good books. David Ascension in particular, if you're a sci-fi fan, you probably recognize the name Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Oh yeah, and
he wrote the book, so if you like his work, you're definitely gonna love David Ascension.
And John French is the author for Armor Eternal. Just a shout out.
I think John's one of the. I think he's like one of the main Thousand Sons writers, along with like
he wrote the. I'm pretty sure he wrote the omnibus. Graham McNeil is another big guy.
Yeah. Usually when Games Workshop realizes, or
Black
Library is their publication branch, when they realize they have a writer that writes a faction good, they just keep them on that faction.
One of your favorites is Dan.
I like Aaron Dembski Bowden, who writes pretty good Chaos Space Marine stuff, but I love Dan Abnett as a writer. In my opinion, Abnett is probably the best author that they have on Warhammer lore at the moment. I think he's also like the primary writer at this point. Not as a whole, but like when it comes to like writing the big like story changing stuff, they tapped him to finish the Heresy series and put to paper the Emperor's like defeat at the end of the Heresy, which is a monumental event in the lore that even though there's been depictions of it, it's never fully been shown before. So there was a lot of really cool reveals that happen on those pages.
It's one of those events where like people always have an image in their head, but Dan was the one to really like
to put
the pen and paper.
What
actually happened. Which is pretty cool. You like and then there's the Inquisition books.
Inquisition books that have been going on for like 20 years now.
Yeah.
And the last book is supposed to come out soon. Pandemonium.
Great name.
But apparently the events that are going to happen in it are so big for like the setting that Abnett has said, "Hey,
the stories. He's on the bench with that book.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
we're waiting for the time
we're on the bench now, and we need to wait to get the go to actually release this story."
Which
maybe later
really cool.
we'll talk about like kind of what that might mean for the series. For now, experiences of the hobby, Xavier. Like, we love this, but like, what are some things that have happened like to you?
So obviously, matches are a big part, and sometimes
if you play the game, yes,
yeah. I guess you don't always have an opponent that's you get your classic like local games sort of like riffraff, kind of a stutter for the rules, a whole different things like those stereotypes. I would say for like people that spend hours a day painting and building like spacemen, you're gonna see those people. One of my favorite stories is I was playing at.
Is it Vermont Gaming?
Yeah, no, it was Quarterstaff Gaming in Burlington. This was been 3 years ago. I was playing with my CSM army. I was doing the War Machine detachment. I got some like War Machines I want to try. I contacted the guy. I destroyed that guy. Quarterstaff server that was in the area at the time, and we could play a game. So we played a game. His description and stench fit like your stereotype, which I don't want to be mean. And so I was like, oh, whatever. Maybe we're playing a game. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with this guy. I'm just glad he agreed to play. So we're playing. He's playing Sword-Offs, which are like the battle nuns. And as he's playing, he's talking about, oh, how do you get in the hobby? And, casual stuff like that. And that's what I like to do outside of Warhammer. And I told him I read, I run. And he's like, oh, I like history too. And he's like, I like World War II history, which I was like, oh, cool. And that's always a very, that's always something that could bring up a lot of scary things, especially in our especially this in the current state we live in. He's like, so, yeah, I like the history of the Wehrmacht, which, again, on surface, nothing wrong. Then he jumps to diving board and says, yeah, if you think about it, the Wehrmacht was kind of, like, innocent during the war. Wehrmacht is just German for, like, fighting forces in German. So he's basically saying the German army was not the one doing the crimes. It was, like, Hitler and the leadership, which, if you are a student of history, a true student of history, especially European history, you will know that it was virtually impossible to have anyone in the army be the good guy. I mean, a good institution of good. They were definitely involved in all of the stuff. And I very politely said how he was wrong. And he basically gave me a so-so answer that I was still put me off. So, yeah, sometimes you might just play a game as a fascist. That's
unfortunately, the tabletop gaming community, simultaneously, I want to say Yeah, come do tabletop gaming. At the same time,
Yeah.
there's a weird
It's a lot.
amount of fascists in this, and I don't know why.
I think it's because they looked at the Imperial Man like, oh, that's awesome. It's run by men. It's like they're militaristic. And I think that kind of itches that like armchair historian,
Yeah.
like wannabe, like like wannabe German general, like fascist wannabe. Yeah. It's unfortunate there are communities in Warhammer that are not the most friendly to
Not everyone.
not everyone. This
No.
is a vocal minority. I'm talking like maybe 1 in every 50 people is like maybe fascist leaning, but that could be too big too. But just I always tell people just be aware that 40K is a hobby like Magic, like Pokemon, like D&D that has like it has its whackers out there. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Desmond? Is there any funny match / opponents you fought?
Yeah, I was playing at. I think this was last year. It was last year. I was playing at Medusa Gaming in Plattsburgh, which is where we hang out a lot of. And there's a lot of really cool people. If you're here in the area and you want to get into Warhammer, that might be a good place to check out.
Yeah,
Shout out to Gus.
shout out to Medusa, shout out to
Yeah,
Gus.
Gus over there is a really cool guy. I mean, he teaches me how to paint. He like 3D prints models for people to just take home and like play with
guy.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's a really cool guy. Helps get people into the hobby. Anyhow, Gus had organized a sort of like a league of games last
that a
year. I was a
crusade?
part of. It's called Crusade. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a narrative theme that you could run for your games. And I had a match against a guy, and similar to you, I was running a War Machine heavy list. Just because when I first got into Warhammer, I kind of thought it was like a waste to buy any vehicles because I was like, well, this is already an expensive hobby anyway. Why am I spending like $70 on a freaking like plastic tank if I can get a bunch of other stuff?
Yeah.
And then I started getting vehicles, and I was like, oh, actually, it's really fun painting these like really big pieces for my army, instead of only infantry. So I had a couple vehicle things that I got from you actually, and I had brought them to the game, and the guy knew what my list was going into the game. He knew it was like armor heavy. I think I had like three mech suits and two tanks, and a few infantry guys running around the board to try to score objectives. And he told me at the start of the game,
Poor guy.
if you think that if anyone listening to this thinks that I'm a dick, I understand. I don't have a strong opinion about who is in the wrong here. However, he did tell me that there were only 3 units in his army that had a chance of
Scratching your arse,
of
guys.
scratching my tanks and my vehicles. And then he told me that if they did scratch my vehicles, I would lose the game. Because if I lost my like tanks and stuff, then I would only have my infantry, a few infantry guys. So I then proceeded to launch all of my
Full frontal assault.
all of my like cannon flamethrower bullets into those 3 units and just took them off the board.
Wow.
And Warhammer 40K is like what, 5 turns?
5 turns.
So 2 turns into the game, he kind of had no chance of beating me. I did feel pretty bad towards the end because he was not having a fun time, and I asked like if he wanted to call it, and he's like, no, let's just keep going because in Crusade, if you it's like narrative, so you get experience points for doing stuff.
Like upgrades,
and
right?
yeah, like upgrades. So then the next game you play with another person, you'll be able to carry like upgrades in for your guys to make them better. Well, he didn't want to end because he wanted to score some objectives and experience points. Unfortunately, that just meant we kept playing rounds, which means I kept killing him. And so by the,
Hit him with
by
the
the end of
steel
the,
chair.
by the end of the game, I think I had both my tanks left. I was down to only one walker, like mech suit, but I was like one mech suit, two walkers, and like a full infantry unit left. So the core of my army was there, and he was down to a single squad of infantry troops and like a leader character. He's like, let's call it, and I was like, let's do.
Sounds good.
But then as we're packing up, he was like complaining that Gus, who'd organized like the matches, had set restrictions on Crusade, like, oh, you can't bring anything that was particularly strong in a certain area. So he was complaining about Gus not allowing him to bring like his big tanks from his army, while armies like mine were able to, and he was just having a miserable time playing the league. Which is completely fair. I do think that at lower points of games, it's a little more it's a little more clear which faction is going to win, and it's only once you get up to like the 2,000, because each unit costs a certain amount of points to bring to the table, and you get into 2,000, 3,000 point games, it's a lot more up in the air about who's going to win. But like I think we were playing 1,000 point games because it was only the beginning of the league. Unfortunately, he kind of just didn't have what he needed to get very far in matches. But it was unfortunate. But I think that's my
to be very.
That's my
he didn't have to
story.
tell you that these 3 units should, or the only
again. Maybe I'm in the wrong for going after those units, but I did want to win the game. Yeah, that might be my nightmare situation. But yeah, I mean that happens when you're playing games. I mean, you might just be really excited to bring stuff to the
table. I think as long as you have good like table board etiquette, you're very transparent with like what you want to do, and
it's kind of.
I feel like people are more forgiving than.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that the match we talked about were like bad matches we've had because I've had some.
Majority
matches.
of the matches.
The majority of matches I've played have been so fun against the people I've played against. Like either win or lose, it's a fun game to play, and even just like sitting down and painting with other people who are into the hobby is very fun. Or building models together.
I'm just excited for a new edition. That should be fun.
Yeah, the rules for not going too much into that, but the rules that they've previewed for the edition do seem fun.
Yeah, I think there is some stuff they have to like iron out with like the kinks, but I think there's my big problem with 40K. The reason why I liked like some of the fantasy and AOS a little better is I think they simplify a lot of the fat better. But I do think, without just talking about stuff, some people may not understand what it's about. They just seem to like kind of slimming down some of the excess, which is why I've been arguing ever since the end of 9 40K should be doing. Which I know is kind of controversial. Does that lead to like less customization? But for someone that likes like game flow, I don't know. I just think it could be very beneficial. So I'm excited for Levany.
Same.
I'm excited to see what they have new for models. I'm happy for both Space Marine and Orc players. Especially Orc players, they got some
there's some great
stuff.
new models. So, like we said, that the setup for this new edition of the game, like story wise, is that this very important planet has been attacked by orcs, and so the Imperium is kind of saying a distress call for like everyone to like come help them to fight the orcs back. Besides that, they've kind of been dotting a few crumbs around about what else might happen, like the story of the edition. Because the way that Warhammer 40,000 works is that
there's like a grand narrative. Yeah,
there's like a grand narrative. Like they'll start an edition with an event, and then as the edition goes on, they will provide updates for how that war or event is going, or they will introduce new storylines as it's going on. Usually, a storyline leading into the next edition. And one of the things that we'll definitely see in 11th edition is probably the return of at least one, perhaps two of the Primarchs, which they're a group in the set who...
The Sons of the Emperor.
They are the sons of the Emperor of Mankind. We talked a bit about him before, but he was this very powerful, ancient,
Sorcerer,
immortal,
God King,
sorcerer, God King, warlord guy who unified humanity together from like the ashes of like the apocalypse into the Imperium.
One of several apocalypses that goes through.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so the Emperor had this grand plan for humanity about kind of setting out into the stars and retaking the galaxy and making a safe universe for humans to live in. It's kind of to the detriment of everyone else in the universe.
As imperialists do.
Unfortunately, as chaos was growing in power, the demons of chaos were growing in power, half of his children, his sons, betrayed him, and
which that's the Horus heresy we were alluding to.
And one of the big things in like the setting right now is that the Primarchs are missing. There's like a 10,000 year difference between 30K and 40K, and these like immortal, they can die, but they don't age. The Sons of the Emperor have a bunch of them are dead, but the rest of them are missing, and they've been away from like the war effort for a very long time. But we've seen in like the last 10 years that they've been bringing them back. There's the Demon Primarchs, which are the corrupted, fallen Primarchs,
the evil,
the so-called evil ones who serve the gods of chaos. And then there's Loyalist Primarchs,
which is only two. At least on tabletop, there's only two models.
At the moment, there's only two of them. Yeah, there's only two active on the tabletop. But there's a few more that they've been hinting might return. It's interesting. A few months back, they released like the first ever artwork of Perturbo, who's one of
Peter Turbo.
Peter Turbo is his fanon name.
He's one. I like Peter Turbo. He's a cool guy.
He's kind of like a nerdy war master guy, and he's one of the corrupted Primarchs who has fallen to chaos, and he's for the while been sitting in the background just like giving his children orders and like plans and like designs for like super weapons. They finally showed him like actually like a few months ago. They finally showed him out and about doing stuff and like gave him his first ever piece of artwork.
Yeah, I was shocked. He wasn't released with like his chapter upgrades.
Yeah, because his army, the Iron Warriors, are like now out on the tabletop.
They got their like
they got like
sub character.
Yep. They got like a kit so you can upgrade your cast Space Marines to look like Iron Warriors. I was very surprised he didn't come out with them.
Oh, that's about the
Defiler, right?
Defiler.
Mutilators, which that's crazy names to just say no context.
Yeah.
The one of them is like a living demon,
like a spider tank, yeah.
And the other one is cast Space Marines who become mutated into like living weapons. They have like blade and like flail arms. Mm-hmm. But loyalist wise, I thought that Layman Roos would be appearing next. He is the leader of the Space Wolves. Yeah. He's very Odin-y, Thor, Viking-y.
Yeah, they're very they have that Viking Norse.
Unfortunately, because Mr. Peter Turbo is back, it's probably going to be his nemesis, his like brother like nemesis that's coming back, who's Rogel Dorn.
Yeah, the Black Spy, White Spy kind of rivalry of like
he is the black spy, white spy.
Because like Peter Turbo's there's whole things about siege breaking and like or siege warfare.
Siege like breaking down fortifications.
Yeah, and his rival
Rogel Dorn,
who's like a fortification like an entrenchment expert.
Yeah. He like
so they're really like designed to be up like
they are
mortal enemies.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that two of the Emperons like literally hobbied in the exact opposite thing. And then during the end of the Horus Heresy, the two of them were put like toe to toe because Dorn defending Earth while Peter was trying to
break the siege.
break the siege.
And actually, the battle turned south when Peter Turbo's forces kind of left.
Yeah, he left. That's like one of the funnier like meme parts of the lore.
Which we are planning to have like a whole like meme slash
definitely make a meme
funny events on Warhammer. And then Warhammer's just such a big
but
topic.
Yeah. So the siege kind of like was lost when Peter Turbo was like, I kind of have enough of this and just like left.
He's like, I'm done.
So him returning to like the lore now is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I think it's our first undivided Primarch.
Yeah, all the
ones have been. We have the cult legions.
Yeah, the ones who are devoted to the Chaos Gods have returned, but the ones who haven't chosen a Chaos God as their patron, we have not had them on the tabletop yet. No. And not just like the Emperor's son's returning, it's possible that the Emperor is returning in some form.
Gasp.
Part of I wouldn't say a big foundational aspect of 40k lore is that the Emperor is gone, but he's not dead.
He's kind of like in stasis as like a giant mummy creature.
He was like mortally wounded at the end of the heresy, but not killed, and he was entombed onto this throne, and he's being kept alive with like sacrifices, sacrifices and life support. And that his soul is still active in like the psychic dimension, the warp,
which is important for the human, the Imperium, because they use his like beacon kind of like a way
the light he emits. They use
as like basically a lighthouse to like judge where they are in the galaxy, and how to make it back to Terra, Earth. So
so
it's very important he is not perma-killed for these guys.
That's the thing, and that's part of like the interesting aspect of what's going on now. There's old lore in 40k, which generally the way that 40k lore works is that it'll overwrite itself. So if a new thing comes out that contradicts a previous thing, it no longer exists. And there's
sometimes they'll wreck on it.
Old lore of this entity called the Star Child, where the Emperor's goodness, like the goodness within his soul, will be incarnated into a mortal form, and that hasn't really been mentioned in like 20 years until a few years ago.
I think last year,
the book series. I think it was 2 years ago. It was like
I think it was 2024.
It might be Hand of Abaddon, that book. They've had a few books come out where it directly mentions the Star Child and it's alleged that the Star Child is either about to be born or has already been born.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the galaxy.
And it's somewhere in the galaxy. So they've laid down that the Emperor is going to return in some fashion. And the interesting thing is that the Imperium does not want the Emperor to return.
No, they
the Inquisition, who kind of run like the Imperium in the shadows,
like the Cedar Police,
they don't think the Emperor returning would be a good thing because again, if the Emperor's
light
soul
goes out,
burning in like the psychic dimension is what allows them to like move through the galaxy safely, him being gone is a very bad thing.
Like even if he was like gone for a second, like say like Star Child,
it would be
comes back.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's so like. it'd be over. Like the ships would be lost. Like
And I think what they're doing is that by incarnating only a small part of the Emperor's like soul.
What I think was what it's described as like his good.
It's like the good. It's like the good
aspects.
of him.
Or like
yeah,
or
because the
like,
Emperor is a really effed up. The Emperor, I think, had good intentions for humanity,
but did them one of the most pig-headedly and stupid way possible.
A dictator warlord who
turned
half his sons against him. Yeah. So.
Don't let the Imperium stands say he's a good guy. He's not smart.
Yeah, again, he's not smart. He wanted to save humanity, but in literally the worst way possible. Yeah. Anyway, the good part of the Emperor is coming back. Maybe that'll be good. I mean, we also know that there's this one Space Marine faction, the Grey Knights, where it was recently revealed.
We'll talk
about them in the future.
We don't like the Grey. Yeah, long story short, we do not like the Grey Knights.
It was revealed in one of the more recent books that came out. It was like their main rule book.
Yeah, it's like a supplementary
book. Their secret order is that if the Emperor ever comes back, they're supposed to try to imprison and or kill
exterminate the Emperor. Yeah,
which is so dumb. Meanwhile, this guy has like the greatest bodyguards in the universe.
Yeah.
And if Rogel Dorn returns, there's a good chance Rogel Dorn might try to protect the Star Child, because his whole thing is defending, and then also one of his descendant like Space Marines, like the Space Marines descended from him. Are the Black Templars, who are these like religious fanatics that worship the Emperor.
Yeah, they are like Crusader
and
like Knights Templar.
The Space Marine that has like the vision, the prophecy that the Star Child is going to be born is a Black Templar. So I think that's kind of where they're the Black Templars are going to be. Find or defend the Star Child. And then there's a lot of like returning the Primarchs and healing the Emperor, because like the third main storyline that's been developing in the background is the Yellow King,
which is one of I think. I haven't read the books, but he sounds so cool.
It's from like the Inquisition series, like the so-called Abnetverse.
The Abnetverse,
where there's this entity called the Yellow King, and this is pretty big spoilers for the second to last book or third to last, Pariah, and then Pandemonium is the one that isn't out yet.
Coming out, yeah.
The Yellow King is an enemy of the Imperium, and specifically the Inquisition, this like shadow like police that are in the Imperium, who are kind of looking out for humanity's best interests, but are bad people.
But are doing it in like as they did.
So the Yellow King is facing off against the Inquisition. He has his kind of own like shadow Inquisition that are active, who are stealing resources from the Imperium. And it's revealed in Pariah that the Yellow King is this guy, Constantine Valdor, which when I read that in the book, I was like, whoa, because Valdor is a character from the Heresy books, and he is the Emperor's best friend.
He's also like he was captain of his
like bodyguard. Yeah, he's a Custodes, which they are they're
Space Marines.
They're like Super Space Marines, basically.
They're the if you ever see guys that are all in gold
armor. If you see Henry Cavill paying Space Marines,
he's paying them. Yeah, they're really cool.
So Valdor disappears he disappears into the galaxy and goes missing, and it's revealed in the book Pariah that this person that's been stealing resources from the Imperium and is trying to gain control of the Emperor is actually Valdor, who's like his best friend / bodyguard, who's like building up his own army and like supporters in the Imperium, like under the nose of everyone else. And it kind of the way the vibe appears to be is that the only reason he's looking for a way to control the Emperor is so that he can find a way to help the Emperor to like heal himself. So maybe that's how they're gonna do it. Like, the Yellow King finds the it's called the Annuncia, which is like this like magic in the universe. He's trying to find the Annuncia to like control the Emperor. So what they're probably gonna have it, and this is like a shot, maybe Valdor, the Yellow King, finds the Annuncia, he uses it to heal the Emperor, but then it only spawns the Star Child into existence. That might be what happened. We don't know as a fact. That's just like me theorizing.
That's on your bingo card?
It's on my bingo card though, just because one, we know the Star Child is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'd say that's
we know the Yellow King's trying to heal the Emperor. And Dan Abnett himself, who has been tasked with Games Workshop to kind of write these very big events for the story as like the lore progressed, has said that the reason Pandemonium is on hold is because
They're waiting for the best time to
waiting-
release the story because it is like
It's
lore breaking, or not lore breaking, but it's very important.
He described it as like a setting changer, something that's going to
Like
change
a status quo changer,
universe,
which is very rare to happen in like modern Warhammer lore.
Modern Warhammer very rarely.
It's pretty stagnant. Yeah.
As an example, the end of 8th edition ended with like the realization that humanity is becoming a more like psychic species, which is good because humanity is becoming more powerful, but bad because that means they're becoming like the Eldar, so they're going to be more under the sway of chaos. And the Imperium is anti-psychic. So you'd think this whole like, oh shit, humanity is doomed to become a psychic species.
We're mutating to be psychics,
it would be a big deal. It's been dropped.
They have a habit of bringing up like introducing like stuff in the lore, and then like they explore it for like a time, and then they just like they leapfrog to another thing. And
last
edition,
edition, 10th edition had the Tyranids come back like into like a resurgence and like wipe out the worlds.
A new campaign.
They teased that as the big story for 10th, and then it didn't really go anywhere after like the first couple months.
Yeah, like they took Oghren, or whatever that planet was called.
Ogrim, I think, or something like that.
Ogrim, and then I think there was...
Which was like a jungle, like backwoods planet.
Yeah, it was it's a frontier planet.
Yeah.
But I know, but in theory, the Tyranid, like the Fourth Tyranid War, is supposedly like driving into the heart of the Ultramarine space, but that's... Which seems like to be important, because the Ultramarines are like...
The poster boys.
The poster boys. They're the big blue guys that like are the logo pretty much for 40k.
So yeah, if you're getting into 40k, you're definitely going to see the Ultramarines a lot. But the thing is, if you're going to be getting into 40k,
we have some tips as people that have been in the hobby for 5+ years.
I would say going to a hobby shop to go buy a set is not where you would start with Warhammer 40,000.
Do not, and I repeat, do not buy one of these giant boxes. Do not buy a Battle Force box for Combat Patrol.
What you want? Not gonna like us for saying
this. Sorry to our the local game store crowd over here, but it's the truth. The truth is, like, one of the advice I was oddly told was like, I forget who it was. It might have been a video online where I was like trying to get into the hobby. It was like, Space Marines are like very easy to learn. So pick a Space Marine to be your first army. Don't do that. If you do not if you like the Space Marines, yeah, there's like 100. Well, it's not 100, but there's a lot of diversity of like what you can do with Space Marine. If you like Flames, there's the Salamanders. If you like Angels, there's the Blood Angels. So yeah, but if you do not like Space Marines,
or you don't know where to start,
look at the factions. Maybe read a story or two. Pick what you like. If you like alien bugs, pick Tyranids. If you like zombie super soldiers, pick Death Guard. Pick whatever you like / what you think is the coolest, because that is what's going to motivate you to paint, to create like lore for your armies, to like give it a more personal edge to your collection. If you really enjoy like the faction, the characters that you're building and playing with.
I agree with that. Just catching like the vibe of a faction is going to bring you a long way in picking out what you are probably going to have the most fun with, collecting, painting, playing, if you want to go that far.
Even if the army is like quote unquote not good to play as,
that doesn't matter.
That's like for competitive people. Like,
if you're not going to
rules change all the time too,
which most people aren't going to go in tournaments, you don't need it. Yeah.
And also rules change all the time, so like it's not like a set in stone like even if your favorite faction is like quote unquote bad, play it. You'll still have way more fun playing them if you're like meta chasing.
Yeah. And I think if you have really no idea where to start with 40k, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to watch this that
play 40k. Yeah.
But if you don't know where to start with 40k, go to a bookstore. Go to Barnes & Noble, Borders, your local bookstore. Check out where the science fiction section is, and go look at the even game shops have started to stock the books too. So it's
some of them do, yeah.
You find your Warhammer book section and look at the covers. They say don't judge a book by its cover.
In this case.
Yeah, in this case, do it.
Yeah, please judge a book by its cover.
Look what looks the coolest to you and read the book. Because you're gonna find out more about whatever looks cool to you in the faction. If it vibes with you, that's a good chance. If you see a book that has what looks like a big metal armored wizard guy casting a spell, maybe you might want to do Thousand Sons or one of like the librarians, like the Space Marine wizard guys.
Or Space Marines.
Something like that. From there, once you find out what you really want to play, you've looked at like some artwork online, maybe read the lore, Wikipedia page or something like that. you can pick up your set whatever you want. There's a few places. Obviously, there's always your local game shops.
Which, if you have a good like relationship with like people there, like support a small business. Yeah. I understand.
Oh yeah.
Buy a standard infantry box.
Yeah.
Like, do not buy one of the big ones because you're starting out.
Yeah.
And when you're testing painting, I feel it's when you make a mistake on a unit of like 6, it's like, oh, it can be like disappointing. But if you're like painting a unit that's like 10 or more, it's okay if they kind of look bad for your or like rough for your first one because you have more of them. So
find out whatever your basic infantry unit for your army
buy that
is.
Kit.
That'd be some armies you have a couple like Tyranids like Termagants.
Some even have like multiple standard infantry. So
find a box, looks cool to you. It's like an infantry of a bunch of models you can test on. Do it. Local game shops. It's always great to support your local business. I mean, Xavier and I are usually into Medusa's down on Margaret Street and also AC Gaming Space as well. They're really cool people in there. They've got a lot of merchandise for Warhammer for you to look through. Not in our area, but I know that a lot of local game shops will also offer like a 15% discount on Warhammer products off of like whatever Games Workshop charges for them. And if you don't have a local game shop in the area, I mean, there's online retailers. Obviously, there's Amazon.
Yeah, but
you can't escape Amazon, but you can choose how much you're going to give them.
Right.
And also check out eBay. Like I said,
some secondhand stuff is like fun. Is honestly a great place to start.
Secondhand is amazing if you're going to be getting into Warhammer. I mean, you can get a lot of models cheap. Generally, I would say don't buy
something that's already painted.
Don't buy something that's already painted if it costs more than what it would.
Because you're gonna probably repaint that over. So
and a lot of people try to charge up for painting services. Don't. There's gonna be some occasions where that's good. For the most part, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I started by buying a box of Chaos Space Marine like basic infantry squad off of eBay for I think $30, and at the time that box was $51 or $52.
I think it was 51, around 50.
It was like 51 when you take off like the 15% that most local game shops had. So yeah, I mean, go on eBay. As another example, I remember there was a starter set that came out last year, really early this year. It was for Horus Heresy, the tabletop game.
Yeah.
There was a local game shop that had a eBay store that I had purchased from in the past, so I had saved them. And there was an incident where, if I remember right, I think their stock was damaged. They couldn't sell the boxes, and they just sold the contents of the starter set to you. Like they sent the instructions, they sent the screws.
What a find!
It was a box of assault intercessors.
That's another thing. If you're in the hobby, with the increased price, a good trick that Desmond's taught me is since they're upscaling their Horus Heresy stuff.
Yeah, this is for Space Marine fans.
And Chaos Space Marine fans.
And Chaos Space Marine fans as well. If you actually do end up liking Space Marines, you can usually get much cheaper deals by buying the Horus Heresy equivalents. The only difference is that the sculpts might look a little different. But like for example, I think if you buy a box that says Warhammer 40,000 Assault Intercessors with jump packs, it's like $70 for five little plastic guys.
You're paying for those adjectives with real money.
Right, but now spend like $10 more, like $80, on a Horus Heresy like what
collecting box
a Space Marine assault squad with jump packs. I'm saying this with the heaviest emphasis. It is literally the same model. For $10 more, you get double the amount of models. No one that you're playing with is going to care that you're using
ancient Marine,
a quote like 30k Marine in a 40k game.
And if they do not play that person.
Yeah, it's generally probably not worth playing with people who care that much about like if you paint in a certain way. Yeah, what you see is what you get is a pretty common, which is it's pretty fair.
I think competitive it's fair, but if you're very casual, I think it's. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who cares? There's not money. There's not a prize incentive. We're just playing. We're shooting the shit. We're rolling dice.
I would say in order of where I would recommend checking out first versus last. probably should start with your local game shop. Either if you can get to it or if they have an online store.
Yeah.
eBay for secondhand, or again, local game shops sometimes have their online stores hosted via eBay, and then Amazon if you can't find anything there.
Yeah.
Buying straight from Games Workshop
is
weird. There's a few units though, they're called online only, which you can only get straight from them. But otherwise you're paying like 15% more, and it's already a pretty expensive hobby.
And it's unfortunately
here's the thing.
Becoming more expensive.
Everyone's going to say Warhammer is expensive, and I won't say it's a really expensive hobby. But a lot of hobbies are expensive these days, and if you're choosing responsibly how to spend your money, you can choose whatever hobby you want to. I mean, you and I, we have some friends.
Yeah.
If we go over to Aquasasani, what they're spending over there, and then if we go to the game shop, down the road, it's about the same amount. Yeah.
True.
But yeah, once you get a kit, watch a couple of videos about how to paint.
Hell, I still like watch paint tutorials because I'm a very novice painter.
I started Warhammer Fantasy Army earlier this year, and I didn't really know what I wanted my guys. I was playing like demons, and I didn't want to know what my guys were going to look like. So I looked up some painting tutorials online. I found one guy that was painted it like identical to what in my mind seemed like a really cool way to paint something. I've been following that guy's like YouTube video every single time I paint a demon model. I throw it on YouTube. I'll have it on like double speed playback, and I'll press play whenever I move on to the next step, and it's helped me a lot. Games Workshop, they have they have
their Citadel like paint series on their channel, which I will say is pretty handy.
There's that.
Just like don't buy any of their accessories. Like you don't need them.
If you're gonna be buying like paintbrushes and glue and stuff, get it from a Hobby Lobby, Michaels. They're usually a lot cheaper than buying Games Workshop
and
stuff. If you're buying from Games Workshop for painting accessories, you're usually just buying for the brand name.
Pretty much, which they are nice quality, but I think like buying like a bundle of brushes for like $10
versus like an $8 single
like
brush.
$8 like single brush is like I think just still cost effective.
When it comes to paint itself, Games Workshop paints
are very high quality.
They used to be called Citadel, but recently they're now just called Warhammer Colors, I think.
Which is
it's okay, you know.
I think it's an L, but
in my experience, they are worth the price. For they're called shade paints, and they're called contrast paints, and you can get those for I think $4 and $8 respectively. And those are for getting lots of stuff colored. Either contrast paints are for getting a lot of stuff colored very fast because it's like a high liquid, high pigmentation paint. Washes are for at the end to make things a little darker, make things a little grimier. I have not found a single good alternative for a wash or a contrast that came from any of the competing brands.
In the arms race of paints, a lot of these places are still trying to catch up.
They're trying to
with
catch
like paint recipes and stuff like that.
But when it comes to standard acrylics, like your base paints that you're putting on, that you're coloring most of your stuff with, go with Vallejo, Pro Acryl.
Pro Acryl is
Monument Hobbies.
I will stand Pro Acryl. Most of my Chaos Space Marines and my Star Wars Legion army is painted by Pro Acryl, so I highly recommend them.
Yeah, I mean even our local local hobby scene, which sells a lot of like Games Workshop stuff. They're investing pretty heavily into alternative paints.
I will say, if you do see a base color of the Games Workshop paints, they are high quality. So like, I don't blame you if you want one of those paints as well. But you can save a little bucks by buying a paint that's still of a good quality. It's a little cheaper.
But yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to wrap up the video there.
Yeah, just if you don't worry about the rules. Be cool. Pick what you like. I like your advice of like reading stories first. I think people should read more in general. So if you wanted in the hobby, pick up a book of a faction you like, and
And that'll be our second episode of Nerds in the Burgh.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
Hope you all enjoyed the various nerdy hyperfixations. And,
that is what this podcast is about. Exploring our hyperfixations.
Join us for our next video, episode 3, Back Session,
which is not a weird video on the internet, on the dark web of the internet. It is we'll be talking about 2 of the hot movies of the summer. When I say hot, I mean hot.
Very, very good films.
These star films. We're going to be talking about Obsession and Backrooms in a kind of in a one scene or video.
or our thoughts on the video.
Yeah, and
on the movies. And we will probably be joined with a guest star as well.
At least
we won't spoil
yeah,
that,
yeah.
but
we'll see.
All right.
But yeah, join us for back section. Again, thanks for watching
y'all have a
or
good
listening.
evening.
Yeah, have a good one.